Look, I've got my sheets all sitting in front of me, so I'm happy enough.
Thanks. So I'll let them in here and roll over to you, Mickey. Away.
That'll be lovely.
Right, admit all. Here they go.
Yeah, when we get in the roller skates and the wind chasing after.
How we guys?
Okay, guys, I think that's nearly everybody linking in there now.
Yeah, that's everybody in, Mickey. I'll let them in as they go along.
Okay, doke. Just guys, can I just make sure that everybody has their mute button on for? No worries. So can everybody make sure that their mute button is on, and then as we go along, I'll tell you who's in, who went to unmute. Guys, behalf of the Mid-Ulster League and the Mid-Ulster League Youth League Player Development Programme, I'd like to wish or thank you all for joining up tonight. I'd like to thank Stuart, Garry, for joining in on this. Garry did one a couple of months ago with all of our players, and it was fantastic. It was just to try and give the players something else, that when football, as we know now, we've had another lockdown for another 5th of March. So I can't see us having any football back anytime soon. But I'd like to thank Garry for doing this for us, just to keep us all sort of sane, if nothing else. Garry, is there anything that you want to say before we start, or?
No, just to say hello to everyone. Glad to be here, and yeah, in terms of questions, ask what you want. I'll try and answer every single thing that you want to ask. So there's no, bars hold. So don't sit back and think, I wish I would have asked that. Just ask whatever you want, no matter what it is. I'll try and answer it as best as possible. But just to say hello to everyone and hope everyone's doing well.
Right. Well, I'll get the ball rolling on this one. We'll get it started. Garry, first one, what is your core values as a coach?
I think pretty much like all of us, really. The first one is hard work. I think work ethic is at the core of everything. And there's many factors, organisation, I like organisation side of it, in terms of not just myself, but my staff, the players, club, the part you have to do on that. Organisation, hard work, honesty is another one. Always promised myself as a player. I've been through, I had experiences with lots of different managers and a lot of really, really good ones. The one key theme I took as a player was, I think, the ones that spoke to me the most honestly, let me know exactly where I stood, at any given moment, whether I wanted to hear it or not, whether it was good news or bad news, whatever it was, I respected it. And I've always promised when I went into coaching or management, I'll be as honest as possible with every single person around me. So yeah, honesty and work ethic. Probably the two biggest core values I have. Try and keep that. Done it all the way through my life, and try and keep it all the way through in my job that I do now.
Guys, can please make sure that everybody's on got their mute button on and wants to, because there's a couple there, see, that hasn't.
Some homeschooling. There's some homeschooling going on.
Yeah. That's great. The next one up, Simon, he's running a wee bit late. Sean, if you could unmute your button, and we'll get you to answer, Sean, from Enniskillen and Rangers.
Hi everyone, good evening, Garry. Thanks again, mate. Top evening. Looking forward to this. I've penciled in a few, so I'll try not to bore you to death with some of them anyway. But basically, followed your career and followed lots of coach career. Quite amazed by a lot of things done and coming straight from playing into coaching. It's a lot of things what a lot of young coaches aspire to do, even though a lot of us haven't had the chance or been good enough to be professional. So so that's great. But I was just wondering, something I always thought about is like when all your jobs have been big jobs, really at big clubs. It's not really lower league. When you get players going away to internationals, and you maybe 5, 6, 7, 8, even 9, 10 players gone. What goes on at training? Like, is it more physically intense for ones? There is a lot of recovery work. Is it a bit of a 2 or 3 day week, or what is it like?
That's a good question. It's a bit of everything, really. The few bits to it, like the number one bit for me with coaching, the smaller group, the better in terms of concentration, players' response in terms of that attention to detail and that bit of care that they feel when smaller groups, for instance, in the lockdowns that we've been doing when we were training in lockdowns, when there were no games, protocols where we're only allowed up to 4 players or 4 or 5 players at any given moment on the football pitch, and then we're bringing them in 4s and 5s. And I've done this before, regardless of the lockdown situation. And what you find with the small groups is that, like I just said there, the attention on them is far greater. They appreciate that. I think they respond to that better. And then it's a mixture of everything: fitness work, recovery, individual work. A lot of times what's frustrating in an international break is when you've got a lot of things planned for the international break, because take the championship, for example, there's minimal time on the training ground in a normal week. Most of the time you're playing 3 games a week, Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday, or Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday. So most of it in between that is recovery. Most of it in terms of tactically and work that you do is probably, I wouldn't say classroom, but in the meeting room, just relaying messages, because you can't really work with them physically because they're just recovering. So you often plan for international breaks to be a lot of detail, things you need to correct, things that have gone well that you can strengthen again, or things that really need to be put right. So it's so frustrating when it depends what club you're at as well, how many international players you've got that have to go away. For instance, when I was at Swansea, I think it was 13, 14 players going away. So you were left with like 8, 9 players to work with. And the problem is you do have a lot of really good work planned for there, and they end up doing the great work. And it's quite similar when you're in a normal working week as well, where the ones that played have to recover. The ones that haven't played, you're doing work on the pitch and you're doing certain things that you wish that the players that are playing more regularly were getting into them, but you just don't get the time. So international breaks, I've always loved it. I use it for a bit of everything: recovery, a bit of time as a group away from football, certain activities and stuff like that. And then obviously the bulk of the work on the pitch, physically, tactically, corrections, individual. So yeah, normally we get 2-week period between the 2 games. So yeah, and then again, it depends on where you're at. Depends on if you're doing well, you give them more recovery time, or more leeway on that side of it. If we aren't, you have to get more down to work, because not just because you have to, but the perception of it. If you're not doing too well, you can't be giving them days off. The perception of that. So you've got to bear everything in mind. But yeah, I use international breaks a lot to put a lot of work and details, just because it's a really good block of days which are free, that you can actually not really worry so much about the physical side of it. You can plan that rather than preparing for a game in 2 or 3 days time. So yeah, that's what I use international breaks for, really.
Awesome. Thanks, mate.
Cheers, Sean. I thought you had a few, Sean.
Yeah, well, we're going to split them up a bit.
Yeah, you're sick of my voice.
We'll split them up a wee bit. There's a couple of ones that there's 2 or 3 has got sort of a couple of questions, so we'll split them up a bit. The next question in is from Raymond Armstrong from Craigavon City. Raymond, can you unmute your microphone for me, please?
Yep, no problem. All right, Gary, thanks for doing this. Mine's a real simple one. I go through problems every now and then of motivating players, especially whenever they're in a bit of a lull, either not scoring goals or not tracking back, not getting back, etc., etc. How did you go about getting to motivate your players to get them to perform again?
Yeah, that's a topic that I'm pretty sure after most games that I play against, when I go and speak to the other manager or the other coaches and stuff like that, that's the one thing that's becoming harder and harder now. I think I don't just think it's football. I think it's society, motivation to go and work and do. Yeah. Where probably most of us grew up in an era where, you know, I said at the start, work ethic was a given. You didn't even think about it. You knew that was a given. It's becoming harder and harder nowadays for players to, you know, do that basically. And yeah, you're right. In terms of the motivation to go out there and work, they're earning more money now than they ever did at a lower level than what you did before. They're rewarded for not even being successful now. So they've got all of these elements coming on top of it.
Yeah.
And yeah, the desire levels and stuff are much lower than when they were when I was coming through, and probably a lot of us have experienced of a certain age group. But in terms of how I motivate players, I think there's so many different ways. I think number one, getting to know the type of character is key. Unfortunately, the bit that I don't like is nowadays a lot of players are motivated by the material things, but rather than fighting against it, probably going back a couple of years, I was still fighting against that a little bit. It kind of pained me to speak to a player about material things as a motivation. But I think rather than fighting against it now, I kind of try and use it in a way to as a motivation for them. Okay, accept that, look, if it's him earning money or appearance, whatever it may be, then even though you do it through gritted teeth sometimes, you know, if money's his motivation, well, then I'll show him how money is, how that can progress. Do you know what I mean? If he does certain things on the pitch, certain things off the pitch, how that could maybe affect that side of it, or if it's other motivations materially, then how you do that. But there's all sorts of things. I've done it with players where I show them at their best. I'll get video clips done, show them at their very best. If it's a particular point like you made there, tracking back, I'll show them both. I'll show them when they've done it, you know, certain clips in games when they've done it, the effect that has doing that, and then show them the clips where they haven't done it. And I always edit on that clip where they haven't done it, and you show them the difference. You show, and obviously you're speaking at that time, you use that emotion and the reasons why you need that, but also for him seeing himself doing it, doing it is probably the biggest effect you can have on someone rather than just talking about it. So there's lots of different ways, but I have leadership groups, you know, try and get that motivation. I try and explain to them the difference between commitment and motivation. Now, this is a thing that a lot of players and a lot of people in life make a mistake about. So I've spoke about this before, where commitment and motivation are two different things, but a lot of people will think they're the same thing. So motivation is an emotion. So like if you're going to rely on motivation, and of course you need it, I'm not saying it's not important, but if you're going to rely on it, then because it's emotion, it's going to go up and down. Do you know what I mean? It's not going to be consistent. It's going to go up and down. You know, one day you'll wake up and out of bed and you'll be like, I had a shit night. Missus gave me a load of shit. I don't feel like training today. I don't feel like playing a match today. I'm not going to be at my best. And you accept it, and then you're going to be shit. Next day you wake up, I feel great. Do you know what I mean? Had a good sleep, all that side of it. I perform good. You're going to rely on that. It's trying to explain to them, if you're going to rely on that, then you're going to be inconsistent. Your performances will be inconsistent, and then you won't reach what you want to reach. And then explain to them what commitment is. Commitment is a straight line. Commitment means every single day, no matter what you're feeling, if you can work towards commitment. We have it all in our lives, not just in football, but in life. When you're kids, you're committed to them. No matter what they do, you're committed to it. You know what I mean? So it's trying to explain to them in a way. I do certain presentations on that with them, and you know, at the start of things, when you're building that team bond and culture and stuff like that, what commitment is, and then trying to steer them away from just relying on motivation. I think Roy Keane did it the other day on Sky. It was a great question, and he talked about how he never ever looked at a manager for motivation, and he was right. But of course, Roy Keane's a different mentality, but he's right. When he said it, I kind of thought to myself, I never once needed to look at a manager or coach for motivation to play football. But what I'd look at a manager for is knowledge. I look for inspiration. So it's different, you know, it's different than to just motivating them. It's trying to give them inspiration, but then the key is to try and find their inspiration, what it is. And then visually, things like that, showing them, you know, when they're sat with you and him, or you and her, whoever it is, sat there looking at those two different clips of doing it and not doing it, is obviously, that for me, I'd say 99% of the time, that's the biggest alarm bell that rings in their head for them to correct it. So that's really how I try and deal with motivation, but it's not easy. It's quite complex, isn't it? But different little things like that I try and use, really.
No, that's great. Thank you very much.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers.
I hope that explained it.
You did. Don't worry.
Thanks, Raymond. Thanks, Gary. Just probably touching on one of them points at the minute. Gary, we all know, and everybody that's in here, it'll be harder now to motivate players to go out to play football now, especially younger ones.
Yeah.
With being in lockdown. I think I've got a 15-year-old, the house here, itching to get at football, just literally itching to get at it. But he's 1 year left at junior level. And it's harder. I can see it harder for him going out to motivate him to get out and playing football.
Yeah. It's a little bit of the environment, isn't it? It's kind of the environment we're all living in right now. But I have the same problems. I have 2 young boys and a daughter, and one of them's mad about football. I know it's a different age, but it's difficult to motivate them in these lockdowns and all those sort of things going on. But again, it's the same thing I do with my kids, to try and find that commitment side to it. I know he loves it, but how can I try and, it's not that I'm pushing him into football, but I know he loves it. So it's like just trying to keep him committed rather than just being motivated to do it, rather than me telling him all the time to go out there. Do you know what I mean? I'll show Harry Kane's his favourite player, so I often show him loads of clips on Harry Kane. I've noticed when we were kids, whatever sport you watched, didn't you? You went straight out and you did that sport. So trying to use things like that just to try and motivate, commit to it. And as soon as I show him a clip of Harry Kane and stuff like that, he's out the door for even if it's 5 or 10 minutes. So it's just trying to use little tricks, I suppose, isn't it, if you want to call it that.
Gary, what age is he?
They're 6, the boys. Got twin boys.
He maybe change his mind yet then about Harry Kane. I'm going to ask you another question here coming up. If the opportunity arose at the minute, would you be interested in coaching either abroad or in America?
I'll definitely coach abroad. I've said it from the start. I even thought about it before I even went into coaching and management. Obviously, gearing up to it. I don't want to do this job. In terms of just to do it, I want to go and get experience. I want to try and different cultures, I want to enjoy it. I want to try and get the most out of it. And it's no disrespect to, like, let's say Roy Hodgson, for instance, who's had an unbelievable career. He's done it everywhere, but I don't want to be 60, 70 years old, stood on the sideline. If you see me at 60, 70 years old, you've got permission to shoot me in the head doing this job. You might see me on the sideline doing a different role, but not as a manager. But in that space, in that time that I've got left, I want to try and experience as much as possible. So I will definitely go and try abroad, wherever that would be, what option that would be, and where, I don't know yet, but and what time that will be, I don't know. But I definitely want to go and try and experience a bit of everything. I've got kind of like a sort of rough plan in my head to, obviously I got thrown into management. I thought I'd go a different way. I wanted to be a manager, but I thought I'd work in a different way. I'd go into the academy system first and work my way up. Obviously got thrown into the deep end, and I'm a manager now. So I want to do a certain period of being a manager, and then I want to try and do other things, be a certain period, maybe as an assistant, maybe as a first team coach, and then maybe as an academy coach, somewhere lower age groups. So I want to try and experience all of it. So that time frame, clock's ticking. So but we'll see what happens with all that. You're muted again, mate, I think.
Just unmute your microphone, Nick.
Yep, Sean. Yep, Sean, you're back up again there. Sorry.
Definitely a second, mate. Just wondering, maybe a quick short one. How much contact week to week and month to month? Obviously, probably different clubs. Do you have contact with chairman and owners? Is it often? Is it not? Depends how you're performing, I suppose.
They're all different, but the majority is week to week. Some can be day to day. For instance, I've had various different chairmans, different cultures, different backgrounds. I have Massimo, for example. I have Massimo Cellino at Leeds, who was crazy. He was a bit off his head, but a smart man for sure, which probably a lot of people don't think about with him, but he's very smart. But his communication was crazy. It would be normal chats during the day or whatever it may be, and then a phone call at 3 a.m. because he was superstitious. if I don't call you at 3 and you don't answer at 3, that means that something's wrong. We're going to lose the game on Saturday. You know, he'd call me at Saturday morning at 3 o'clock in the morning and saying I had to do it because I was superstitious. I'd been told this. I was like, it's 3 in the morning, mate. It's like, what can you possibly want to talk about at 3 in the morning? But he was a bit out there, you know, he was a little bit like, a little bit loose in the head a little bit, but very smart man. But yeah, I've had different experiences. So yeah, that communication with him was, it could be 9 in the morning, or it could be 3 o'clock in the morning, or it could be like 10 o'clock at night, it could be anywhere. And if he didn't answer it, he was in a panic. But yeah, and different ones. I've worked for Chinese owners, a Thai owner, English owner. So yeah, all different. But majority of them, most communication is weekly, I would say. Some are daily, even if it's a text or whatever. So I've had to communicate over email without verbal before, which is quite strange. And then I've had a few more recently over Zooms, which is different. But then the majority of them, yeah, a lot of them do work quite closely to the club. They're there most times. If it's not game days, at some points during the week, you have certain meetings or phone calls or whatever it may be. So yeah, it varies, but it's quite consistent majority of it.
Thanks, Sean. Raymond Armstrong again from Craigavon City. Raymond, can you?
Yep. Right, mine's a nice easy one for you. Who would you say has been the best player you've ever played with or played against, and the reason why?
Best player, without a doubt, I've ever played with was Matt Le Tissier in Southampton. Absolute genius.
Yeah.
Like, in terms of experience, young lad coming through. And he was a top man as well with all the young lads who used to come and get changed in our changing room, for instance. You know, like a lot of days he'd come and get changed in the youth team changing rooms, you know, and base himself there for weeks on end, like until he got bored and then went back in the first team changing room and stuff like that. But he was just brilliant. But he used to do unbelievable stuff, like just things that I'd never seen before, I haven't seen since. Just a genius with the ball, not the quickest, but the smartest. I remember one day we were doing training and finished, and first team players had stayed out, and they were trying to do a game from the halfway line or in the centre circle, and they put like a Lucozade bottle on top of the crossbar at either end. And the first team players, obviously I was young now, I was like 17, 18 at the time, so you're a bit in awe of it. They were betting each other money who could hit the bottle off the crossbar. And the lads must have been out there for about 20 minutes. Like, no one's hit it at all. Like, Matt Le Tissier had gone in, got changed, got showered, come out in just his normal clothes, and sort of saw everyone was over there, come walking over across the pitch to get to the car park. And he said, "What are you all doing?" And they said, "Oh, there's this mountain in the kitty. We're trying to hit the bottle off the crossbar." He just picked the ball up, didn't say a word, picked the ball up in his hand, dropped it, half volley, didn't even hit the crossbar, hit the bottle clean off, picked the money from walked in.
Unbelievable.
We were just like, just a genius, mate. Just like absolute incredible. So he was the best player I've ever played with. Best player I've ever played against. There's a couple. So I was a centre half. So it was more partnerships I played against, which were probably the best I played against. I played against Thierry Henry and Dennis Bergkamp.
Oh, wow. Him too, amazing.
I think I was 19 at the time, 19, 20. Yeah, that was an experience.
Yeah, tortured.
Yeah, and then I played Michael Owen and Robbie Fowler at Liverpool. That was another experience. And then a different experience was Alan Shearer and Duncan Ferguson. And I remember with that one, I came on as a sub, and the ball got played down the channel, and it was kind of going out for a goal kick. It was half sort of going out, I wasn't quite sure. We're both side by side running for it. He was going to cross it. I was going to try and shield it out. So I've ended up sliding in. I've caught him. I've took his ankle. Didn't mean to catch his ankle, but it's hurt him a little bit. So anyway, I've caught it. The ball's got cleared. I've jogged up to the halfway line. Ball's in the other end. The game's going on now. Just see this big shadow come to the side of me, just staring at me. And I was like, just thinking, do not look to your right. Whatever you do, guys, just don't look to your right. Because I could just feel him staring at me like probably thinking, this young lad, I'm going to either teach him a lesson or let him get off with it. Thankfully, he let me off with it. But yeah, those partnerships were the ones I really take as like lessons and great
Yeah.
memories and like really good like feelings from. So yeah, that they were quite not bad players, were they?
No, some excellent players there. Some of the best we've ever seen.
Yeah. So no, it was great experience for a young lad, and enjoyed it. Had a good battle with them as well. Like, learned a lot. So yeah, they were best. I've gone for partnerships really in terms of best players I've played against.
No, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Guys, look at Sean up again. So Sean,
make it interesting this time, all right? Come on.
No,
That's two boring questions right now. Come on.
No, I'll think of it. I'll think of a more interesting one for later on. This was basically just because there's probably a lot of guys here as well that are youth coaches. Obviously, I'm not from Northern Ireland originally. I'm from Blackburn. Done a wee bit youth coaching back home, and then moved over here. And the level of youth coaching over here, and the actual level of youth teams, I think a lot of it's down to sort of the GA as well. It's unreal. Like, it's really, really competitive. A lot of the boys are super fit, super enthusiastic. The coaches are very well knowledged. When I was a bit younger and doing it, sort of leaving school age and college years, kind of like, unless you're at a professional club, just Sunday league back home is a little bit, it is amateur, it's very, very poor. Whereas over here, it's like semi-pro at the top, and then the next level, the youth level, is pretty good. Like, there's quite a lot of good teams. There's a real good setup across the whole of Ireland. Like, it is really good. So what I've kind of seen at is we all do it badges, and we're all desperate to try and get a chance in clubs. Now, obviously, as yourself, you probably don't like the sense, but you're a professional and you got thrown at the deep end. Like, you didn't have to take the opportunity. It's a great opportunity, but you got given it, even though you weren't proven as a coach already. I understand you've so much more experience than any of us could ever possibly have. But what is this sort of being done now in clubs? Is it 100% down to management that find the coaches that they want to bring in? Is there other things being done in clubs to help ensure that lads are brought in that have spent the time getting the coaching badges? Does it vary everywhere? Is it different everywhere?
No, that's a great question. You're right. Quite simply, quite simply, not enough is done. I think I've had this conversation with owners before and CEOs who like to talk the talk about having an academy set up. For instance, every club I've been at, I've tried to promote the youth. I've tried to, of course, there's a job to be done, and I need to results, and I need to, incorporate the senior players and all that side of it. But every single club I've made a particular point of elevating the academy players into the first team environment, and then hopefully, as so far it's been good, being able to give debuts and being able to progress some of those younger players into the first team environment for a permanent fixture and in and around that first team. But in terms of work that's done below that, not enough at all, if for my liking. I've said it to a lot of owners. I said, I don't understand why, if you've got an academy, I don't know why they don't invest. Of course, there's a need. First team's the most important at these levels, of course. But for something that millions of pounds can be spent on certain players and certain things, obviously the pandemic's changed that a bit, but in a budget that a chairman may have in his head, to sacrifice maybe £1 million of that, let's just say for an example, to invest into that academy side of it. In terms of the coaching, because I've said it all along, I said what I don't like in football is just that pals for pals, jobs for the boys. It does go on. That's life. That's society. That's just the way it is. But I've said it all along to owners. I said, why do you not just give, for instance, if you want the academy to be successful, and that's what you want, that's what they often talk about, and we want to get players through, and we want to be able to sell them and all that side of it, and or make it into the first team and go on. Why not invest that a little bit more into the coaches? Of course, the academy is invested, but get the best coaches for that level. Get the best under 9s coach. Get the best you possibly can, under 10s, under 11s, under 12s, whatever it may be, and put that out there. But what it tends to happen, what I've seen, is academy managers rule the roost, and they employ who they want to employ. And that might be a mate of a mate. That might be someone that they know. And I get there has to be a trust side of it. It can be out of your comfort zone to employ someone that you don't know, but has got great credentials. So there's always that fight. But I've seen it a lot. I've seen the academy managers, and no disrespect to academy managers, I'm not tarring everyone with the same brush, but from my experience, what I've seen is they rule the roost, you know, and they employ who they want to employ. And I've tried to explain to owners and people above and stuff like that, that that's not the correct way. You know, the correct way is to try and get, if you've got an academy system and you're pumping money into that academy system and you want it to be successful, then you need to just put that little extra bit in to motivate the coaches at those young, especially the younger ages where they get paid a pittance for the work that they do. Why not motivate them? Going back to that original point, money's not everything, but we're not stupid. We're all in the world where we need to live and earn money, and everyone wants to earn as much money as they can. There's nothing wrong with that. Well, why not just add that little bit extra? You pay that little bit more than the under-9s coach for the professional team that runs down the road or within a radius. Everyone will want to come to you. There's your starting point. And it might not be a hell of a lot more, but there's your starting point. And then you're coming into an environment, if you make it right, where it's competitive, like you said, they're the best coaches at that level in that radius of area. Well, there's only one person that's going to benefit, and that's the club. The club's going to benefit from that. And if you continuously do that. So I've had these conversations a lot. So in terms of going back to your original message, like, no, I don't think enough's done at all from my experience in clubs that I've been at. So it's how we change that, I don't know. The only thing you can do is what you can do. And I've had those conversations with every owner that I've come across about those conversations with the academy manager. I'm quite straightforward. I don't really hold back, to be honest with you. So I've had a few run-ins with academy managers because they don't like what I want to say. Do you know what I mean? But if I don't say it, then I want to be true to myself. So again, it's not what's best for me. It's what's best for the environment and the football. And if I'm promoting young players into the first team environment, then that whole process below it should be right. So no, I don't think clubs do enough. I don't think there's enough thoughtful thinking or forward thinking. And there's too much power given to certain personnel that obviously stem that as well and don't have the outside the box thinking of trying to change that. So no, I don't think that there's enough to be done. Hopefully that changes, but how it happens, I'm not too sure.
Awesome, thanks, mate. Well, you know where I am if you need a good youth coach. You know?
Yeah. Hey, I haven't got a job, so don't. I can't.
Especially abroad.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sean. Guys, next up, Garry Nicol at Tullyvallen.
Hi, Garry. Is that working?
Oh, there you go.
Yep.
Hi, Garry. I think part of this you answered in one of the very first things you said tonight. In your experience, does the player with the more work ethic than skill struggle to make it above the person with the skill and less work ethic?
Yeah, good question. I think at the younger ages, I think the one with the skill makes it more than the work ethic. I think coming through younger ages, and possibly even up to the youth team ages of 16 and possibly 17 and 18, I think the ones with skill, because the ones with skill at those younger ages are the ones that catch the eye, and they're the ones that people look at as the potential. And of course they have. Of course they got the potential over maybe someone with the less skill, less talent, but more work ethic. It's not that they get cast aside, but in terms of the younger ages, I think it's the ones with skill that everyone looks for. I mean, that's what everyone clubs are looking for. And I think they tolerate a little bit of less work ethic at those younger ages. But what I notice is then when you come into like the professional ages, the skill doesn't count for, it doesn't go without the work ethic. I've seen so many players, I've played with so many players, I've since been a manager and coaching, seen so many players with so much talent at those age groups just coming into that pro part, 18, 19 maybe, who've got all the skill and talent, don't have the work ethic. And then I think about them now and then nowhere. They're either playing non-league or they're not even playing anymore, and because they don't have that work ethic. So it's hard because, again, this is another thing that talk to academy managers about, and it's not that they don't recognize it, but the earlier that they can put that work ethic with their skill and talent, the better. But again, you guys will know as well, a lot of you will know that that's the battle in itself. Often when you're in those younger age groups and you've got all the skill, sometimes you're probably physically better. You don't really need to work hard because your talent's enough. Do you know what I mean? You can boss a game and everyone thinks you're great, and because your talent is probably way above that pool of who you're playing against. But then, when it comes to that crescendo of coming into the professional game ages, and everyone, you start getting other players that are just as good as you or just as talented as you, but they've got a stronger work ethic inbuilt in them, then often you'll see those ones fade unless the penny drops and they take it on board.
Yeah. Thank you.
Cheers, Garry.
Thanks, Garry. Next up, we've got Stevie Muir.
Yep, no bother. Cheers.
Nice, Dave.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
I got you, mate.
All right, Gary, how's things, mate?
Good, mate.
Oh, good. So when you started pursuing your coaching and management career, did you experience any setbacks? And if you did, what gave you the determination to overcome them?
Yeah. Getting sacked. It's a bit of a setback. But no, it's interesting one. I don't know. Sometimes I think I'm a bit not quite got a screw right in the head in terms of resilience. I think I'd always had resilience from a young age. I think again, how we grew up, and with my older brother who's sat there, and my friends and all that. So we kind of it was a different era, wasn't it? We said work ethic was a norm. It was a given, and I always played like years and 2 years above myself all the way through, playing against stronger, faster players, physically more dominant players, pushing myself, pushing, and because I was good at a good level and I was better than my level of my age group, obviously schools and counties and going into that, I think my resilience levels were always built from an early age to really high. So then when I've come into adulthood and I've gone through my career and I've had setbacks in my career, and I started at United in the bottom in what's League Two now, managed to get a move to Southampton in the Premier League. Didn't quite work out for me how I wanted to in Southampton. Went all the way back down to League Two with Swansea, and then had to go all the way back up to the Premier League. So I've done it twice, and it's like all that way you've had doubters and people say that you can't go to the next level and all these sort of things. So it's just been part of the life, the life plan, and that resilience has always been there. So any setbacks that I have, it's not that you don't take them to heart and you don't listen to it and doesn't hurt you, but I think no one knows myself better than me. No one's more critical of myself than me. And I think that resilience level I've got a high resilient level, I think, just naturally through all those experiences. So when setbacks come, you get upset about it but literally I've got quite a good switch in my brain where I don't dwell too long. I know what
shrug it off and keep going.
Yeah, I know what needs to be done. Do you know what I mean? I know what I need to do better. I know what needs to be done moving forward, and I'd make sure that I correct it and try and get better at it. And yeah, it's probably that side of it's the influences are totally different now to growing up and stuff. I'm so happy. I try and explain this to young players nowadays, or young players in the first. I'm so happy I had the upbringing I had in the environment I had from football inside like that, because it was old school and we had old school pros and things like that and stuff like that. I'm so glad I had that grounding, because the influences now are different, aren't they? Social media is a huge factor in players' mindsets. I see so much weakness in players because of social media. And the thing is, social media is changing the world. There's so much negative on there. There's positive as well, of course there is, but the majority of you is used for negative. There's so many people on there that want to make horrendous comments about performance, about yourself as a person, stuff like without even knowing you, without having any credence. I'm lucky where my grounding allows me to just dismiss that. But I see it in players. I see it in not just young players, but I see it in most players nowadays of the more modern generation, where
no getting away from it.
Like they'll take whatever's said about their performance or them as a person as gospel. And you try and explain to them how someone who's sat probably anywhere in the world, who doesn't even know you, who's never going to have an influence on your life, you're never going to see him ever in your life, how you can let that influence you is just incredible. But they do. And that's another battle that is getting bigger and bigger in football, and probably in society. You know, probably all had the same. I've had my daughter on. They've been doing this TikTok thing, and she's on about likes. She's 9 years old, so she's on about likes and stuff like that. And I'm just so like, that is not what you need to worry about. Do you know what I mean? It's not what the world's about, but it's the modern generation coming, isn't it? So yeah, it's but going back to myself now, I don't. Of course, I read it, and it hurts you, and you have emotions to it and stuff like that. But I know at the end of the day, it's someone that doesn't care about me. Why am I going to care about what they say? Do you know what I mean? You know what's right and wrong, and you just stay on your path. Do you know what I mean? Keep trying to improve yourself and stay on your path. So you got your family around you, the ones that love you, and they're the only ones that I'm trying to make sure that, you know, put me straight or put them straight or whatever it may be, you know, and keep on track with that, really.
Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant, Garry. Thanks very much.
Cheers, Stevie.
So well.
Next, Chris McCann. Chris, you want to unmute?
Yeah, no problem. Garry, you're also the co-founder of the Soccer Profile platform. So we've used that for a year and a half now in the academy.
Yeah.
Found it very, very useful, helping us with player development.
Yeah.
What was the idea behind that platform and launching it?
Yeah, basically, yeah, Soccer Profile. It was, I sat down with my brother. Basically, I was coming towards the end of my playing career, and I was starting to do my badges from 26. So whilst I was still playing, and then Stu was obviously heavily involved in different levels of grassroots and academies and things like that, and doing various different things in terms of football. And I think we just sat down one day, and we just, you know, there was a common questions and common things that would come up, especially from Stuart's side of it, and on those courses that come up of at the elite level and the professional levels, you know, how we monitor players, how we track players and measure certain things of players, you know, as well as me, it's super expensive. It's super, you know, technology that is, you know, clubs invest in. And then obviously the lower levels and grassroots and academies that are lower, you know, certain leagues that haven't got that professional backing in terms of money. Often that question will come back, well, it all sounds great. How can we like see how good we are? You know, we've all got an opinion, we've all got our eyes, and that's important, but how can we actually physically, you know, measure, you know, players? How do we put that into somewhere where we can store it and see it and visit it, and the player, not just the player, but the coach, the club? How can we see it as a visual, you know, and how can you do it in an affordable way where it's not like that's totally out of reach of everyone? So that's how we sat, and then that's how we sort of came up with the idea of Soccer Profile, you know, a tool where we can measure the physical and technical, you know, attributes of a player, and try and format that in a way where it's visual for a whole club, for a coach or for a player, and make it tangible and exciting enough to, you know, for the players especially, but for the coaches. And we sat down. It's been a long process, you know. We haven't just done it overnight. We've, you know, it's 5, 6, 7 years of research, and we've gone to the highest levels, you know, to try and get the benchmark, you know, where all these kids and everyone wants to get to, and then try and set that as a target for, you know, implement that. So younger players that aren't at professional academies, how do we get there? And it's so multifaceted, you know, where, you know, as coaches, you can use it for your benefit, just for your group or for the club. And you can compare against different clubs, and, you know, say you've got a 13-year-old centre half who's got ambitions and wants to play in the Premier League and wants to get into a professional academy. Well, you can compare that to a centre half of the same age at a professional academy, and where he's at, where his you know, technical attributes and physical attributes match to that, and you can help him with that, and see where he needs to improve. So it was just a way of putting something together where, you know, as coaches, clubs and players themselves, they can measure themselves and see exactly where they're at as a visual, and then have a pathway where they're supplemented with different, you know, degrees of difficultness in terms of improving those technical abilities and physical, and supplement that with the all-round training that you need to do there, nutrition and everything. So yeah, that's really what the platform's about, and it's growing all the time. So that's where the idea came from. It's just something that, yeah, me and my brother Stuart, we really thought about, and a lot of research and work gone into it. But yeah, we know it's a big benefit, and it's about how we improve that to help everyone that wants to use it.
it's been a massive benefit for us with this lockdown, because you've got the individual learning platform, and we're actually giving the players the responsibility to do that from your garden or your outside in your home, because we're not training. So we're having to set them tasks and challenges to do on their own. They're logging into their platform. So yeah, we've been really good for us.
Yeah, it's great. And that's what it is. It's so flexible in the sense of, you know, you can do it when you're back in your environments and they're all together. You can do it, like I said, we set it up so it's a tangible way where it's affordable. It's affordable for everyone because you don't need that much for it. So like, again, at an academy with an all singing, dancing equipment and everything like that, do you know what I mean? You don't need all of that. You can do it in your back garden. You don't have to always have the cones and mannequins and all those sort of things. You can use your jumper, but still do the measurements and improvements whilst you're at home. So it's right there. You had the question earlier about, you know, motivating the players to get out in this lockdown and stuff like that. You know, that's there as well. You can use your, you know, not only do what's on there, but use your imagination off it and set it for the players, and knowing that when they come back, they're going to be tested on this. That's motivation for them to, you know, can you come in? And because they can see themselves and see each other and their teammates, they can compare themselves. You know, you set that competition or whatever amongst it. That's what they want. They want that competition with their mates and stuff like that. Like they are on their computers when they're on it with each other. That competitive edge is trying to set it like that as well. So yeah, there's a lot of things to it, and there's a lot more to come from it. You know, where we're working on right now, different things to improve it and add to it. So yeah, no, it's great that you're finding it helpful and using it, and you know, we're delighted to, you know, that we're delighted to have you. And yeah, in any way that we can help.
Brilliant. Thanks, Garry. Cheers.
Cheers.
Is that the final question, Mickey, that came in? You want to open it out?
The last one. There was one more, but the guy Simon hasn't actually appeared. So unless you want me to ask the question.
You ask it. Go ahead. Yeah.
Guy Simon Thornton from Tullymore, he said he'd got held up at work and he thought he would try and maybe get in about 7:30, but he hasn't got in yet. Every team squad has got a prima donna on it, and we all know what they look like. They also have a huge number of players who potentially learn in different ways and have different personalities. What qualifications, if any, do managers at the top level have, i.e. managing players, understanding how the players learn, psychology, etc., or do you just go with your coaching-based skills?
No, that's good. No, you have to learn. You have to. It's not just about football knowledge. I've done a lot of studying. When I was at Swansea, I think I was the first one in the Premier League, I think, at the time, where I actually brought a sports psychologist in with me to work with me and the players on a daily basis, and not just someone that came in once a month and sat you in a room and asked you your problems. An actual football-based psychology actually works with the England squad now. But he was at Swansea. He was a local Welsh ex-player in his career, had a bad injury, and then went into the psychology side of things. And then I implemented him, and he was great for me personally, and then great for the squad. And I learned a lot. I used to ask him a lot about the psychology side of it. I do a lot of studying on leadership. Certain parts of leadership, not just for yourself, but for the players, that you're leading, but for leadership in terms of how you lead with people above you, club staff, all that side of it. Leadership's a big one that I'm into. Done a lot of studying on that. And yeah, you're right, you have to. Some don't, some just go off instinct. I think, you have to trust your instincts as well. But yeah, you have to do a lot. I've gone to a lot of seminars on different, the mentality side of things, and like I said, psychology, and yeah, I think it's not that I'm going to get a qualification for it, even though you can do. I've learned and gone and studied like how to read balance sheets, in terms of club finances. What you often find at clubs is they won't ever tell you a budget. An owner will often tell you that it's, if we can afford it, we'll do it, but they won't ever tell you a budget. But they use terminology that will often, they think they're trying to pull the wool over your eyes. They're trying to use certain terminology that most people wouldn't understand. So I've tried to understand, how to read certain balance sheets and terminology that goes with finances, so that when we're talking or the finance director wants to talk and come out with a spiel that he can't afford to buy a set of nets, do you know what I mean? And because of certain bits, is that I've tried to get an understanding of whether that's true or not, or understand what he's saying. So yeah, I've tried to study a lot. It's just a continuous process. So yeah, as well as the football side of it is, yeah, leadership and financial business. Yeah, I've tried to study a lot on it, and still to this day, continuously reading books and studying certain seminars and certain functions I go to, and yeah, to try and improve that side of it. I find it interesting. I find that side of it really, really interesting. How the brain works and the mind works, and like we've gone back there because that's part of the job now. You have to get into their minds and try and understand the character that you're dealing with, because it's more complex now than ever. So because of all the influences that are around them. There's totally different. You know, I said it before, but there's other influences now. Sometimes it's family. I find going back to the social media one, but I find a lot of other influences now are the people they actually have around them. I see a lot of players now that have their family members as their representative. Now, I've got no problem with that. I think that's great in the sense that they want to, rather than give it to some agent, they want to give their family to earn something out of a move maybe, or whatever it is. But what I often see is, and I've experienced it before, where a family member's come in and the player's maybe gone to the toilet or gone somewhere to have a look around, and the family member's just, all he considers is himself. You know, he doesn't even really care. That could be his son, or it could be his nephew, or whatever that is. So there's a lot of influences around him. So how that works and how you try and speak about that and stuff like that, yeah, you need to understand the person and the psychology of it. And yeah, so it's all different things. Yeah, rambled on a bit there, but yeah, trying to answer that question.
No, that's great, thank you. Chris, do you want to jump in?
There's been one sent through here on a message to me on the Zoom from a Darren McQuaid. Darren, do you want to ask the question yourself, or will I call it out? I'll wrap.
Don't be shy, Darren. Come on.
Yeah, I'll go for it. Garry, you've always been very keen on getting youth players through your sides.
Yeah.
Is this a personal passion of yours? And what excites you in the player?
Yeah, it is. The reason why is because I've been in that position. I was a youth player trying to break into the first team and had a pathway. Lucky enough to find a pathway. And I think that's just, I've said it all along. If a club has an academy, then why aren't you going to use it? What's the point in having it? You know, why employ a manager that isn't going to use the academy that's at the club? You know, otherwise, what's the point of having the academy? So every club I've been at has had an academy, and I've been through that. Obviously, it was different to the academies now, but it's still the same process that you've set up, and having a pathway. You know, I always remember as a 15, 16-year-old kid at Torquay United, seeing a pathway to that first team. You know, I was able to, lucky enough, I was able to train with that first team. I was able to go to first team matches. I was able to be around that environment. And there's no greater motivation than that. And I've made a point of that at every club I've been at, to give those young players in that academy an experience and a taste of what they're trying to really achieve, and make it real for them, not just talk, you know, or seeing something else at another club, to see it themselves and feel it, you know, smell that grass with a first team player, smell that, what it is in a first team changing room, you know, go and get that experience. It might be they come up for one day and they sit in the first team changing room for that one day and have that whole experience. Or of course, depending how they're, you know, where they're at and their development, it's longer, you know. But I regularly have, first thing I do in a club is obviously I assess the first team squad and the first team players, and then probably within the first day or two, I'll go and speak to the academy manager and the academy coaches. I'll ask them which group of players, maybe 6 or 7 of them, you know, or could be depending on how many they say. I say, how many of them are ready or near ready, or you feel deserve to have an experience in the first team? And they'll tell me that can be anything from 2 to 8. I've had 9 or 10 in the first stages, and they train with me every single day. There's always a youth team group training with me every single day. And then some obviously progress better than others. And, you know, incorporate them into the first team environment more and more and more until they establish themselves. So yeah, it's a passion of mine. I love it. There's no better feeling. There's no better, out of everything I've done in management, there's no better feeling than a youth player coming through and making his debut. It's nothing better. When you see the look on his face, and if he's had a good debut, that is, but to see the look on, even when they haven't, but to see the look on his face and his family's face, I make a point of seeing the family afterwards and stuff like that. And when you see the look on their faces and what that meant, that's something that you'll never, ever forget. And I remember that, making my debut, never, ever forget it. And it's like, there's just something about that that's probably worth more than anything else that I've experienced, to be fair, in management. So yeah, that's kind of like, yeah, it is a passion. And yeah, that's why, yeah, hopefully more to come.
Super, thanks very much.
Yeah.
I think Jimmy's a few questions next, have you? Jimmy?
Yeah, please. And obviously, listening to the show here, you have time to sort of think. Garry, fair play. Always followed your career as a player, as a coach, and looked at you as a decent fella. You've now even gone up in my estimation. What a fair play I must say is, what's coming to the fore is how you think outside the box.
Yeah.
You know, if I know, at the end of the day, I know a lot of managers, and I've actually a few close friends in the game who have stayed in my house here many a time. One of them would be actually Coops, who's obviously at Swansea. But I've been very impressed with how you spoke tonight. The previous question there was from Simon. Simon actually coaches at my grassroots club. Simon's actually a pro golfer from Huddersfield, but he lives over here now in Newcastle. So there's just a minor detail. But anyway, a question two I want to ask is, first one is, why is it so difficult to manage Sheffield Wednesday? Is it because of the big club that they were, that they want to get back there? Why is it they've gone through quite a few managers? Well, you don't have to go into such detail.
No, look, that's fine. It's a fair question. I'll be honest with you. My experience so far in management is, and it astonishes me, is the lack of a plan. You know, the lack of a plan for the club, what it's doing, where it wants to go, how it's going to do it. And it just amazes me at for instance, the levels that I've managed at, where there's a lot of money being invested. And to do that without a plan, it boggles my mind. So I'm yet to be at a club that has a clear defined plan. I look at other examples, you know, I look at, like, for instance, like Brentford, for instance, they've had a 6-year plan. That plan works. Do you know what I mean? Yes, it's taken 6 years, but, you know, and they probably would have liked to reach the Premier League earlier than that. Their plan was probably 4 years and they would have reached the Premier, but they stick to that plan. It's a definitive plan. You know, each year they've crept closer and closer, improved and improved. And when they don't make it, they have that plan in place where they'll sell some of their assets, 2 of their assets, which will cover them for the next, probably, well, the money that they sell for, probably the next 10 years. But each time then they go and get another, you know what I mean? That whole recruitment side of it, everything, it's a clear plan. And when you look at the clubs that make it to the Premier League successfully and sustain it, they have a clear plan. You look at, for instance, now Norwich, Burnley did it. Burnley had a clear plan. They went to the Premier League, they got relegated. They stuck to that plan, stuck with that same manager, got promoted again and went up stronger and sustained it. And now they're sustaining it. You're looking at Norwich now, they've had a plan, shorter term plan, but it's worked. They've gone up to the Premier League. They've come back down. They're now top of the league again because they have a plan. So it amazes me, the clubs that I've experienced where they don't have a plan at all. And you try and talk about that and try and ask them why and try and say the benefit of that and give them the examples. But because a lot of those people, they can be very rich men or from a rich background. They're from a business background. And to be successful in their business, the bit that confuses me is they can be very wealthy people in their private lives. And to be very wealthy, like some of them are, they must have had a plan that's been done over a period of time to build that fortune or build that wealth. To then come to football and totally disregard those principles that they must have followed in their private lives or their business life just astounds me. Because then they're sat there with the same face on them where they cannot believe they've lost all this money and they're not sat there with success. Well, the key is because they have no plan. And that's the most telling thing, and it dumbfounds me. And again, it's down to cultural things and stuff like that. Those conversations haven't gone well for me because, you know, I've worked with different cultures. The Chinese culture is the hierarchy culture, you know, where you're not supposed to question what's above you. So that can often be difficult when you're trying to add advice and you're trying to say, look, this might help, and try and delve into that side of it. That often hasn't helped, you know, in you know, the Chinese that I've had. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, it's a very difficult situation. But for me, the reason why it hasn't worked out, number one, is because the plan has to come from top to bottom. But then the other side of it is I didn't do well enough. You know, yes, I had a lot of things. I was pointing out a lot of fires to actually concentrate on what my actual job is, which is the football. Wasn't totally able to do that. There was a lot of.
Would you agree then they were looking for the instant success?
I think that's the world.
Results.
It's the world we live in. Everything is instant. You know, you look at our kids are on iPads, our kids are on, you know, we all have iPhones. We can get any information we want instantly. That's the way the world's moving. You know, it's instant. Everyone wants everything now. You can order Amazon today, it's delivered tomorrow. So that's the mindset that we're living, not just football, but the society. So you see it on the media. I noticed the first time I've noticed it as a manager was my first sacking was where at Swansea we had an unbelievable time, the highest points tally. We broke a number of records in my first season, all that side of it. We started brilliant the second season, same again. And then I got sacked for a 10-game period. Now, I remember after 5 games, and it's always stuck with me, if you do not win in 5 games, right, and you could draw 4 of them and lose 1, but if you haven't won in 5 games, that's when talk starts. That's when social media goes. That's when media start to spin it. Do you know what I mean? So like they will always spin it to the negative. So if you haven't won in 5 games and I draw 4 of them, they'll say no wins in 5, rather than, hang on a minute, we've drawn 4 of them and we've only lost 1 loss in 5. You know what I mean? But me, that's how it starts. And it's something that I noticed. It hit me. I was like, wow.
Garry, in the conversation you mentioned Brentford, and even though I agree with it, even though some people give me a bit of stick, because my job, I work for the association as a development officer, and there's Brentford, who look how well they play and how well they do. But when they binned their academy, what's your thoughts behind why they? Well, we all know sort of why they did it. Do you agree with it as well, or what's your review?
No, I didn't mean it because they've been the cat. What I meant was.
No, I know what you did. And you went. I mean, the first team styles super, and how they do it, but the next level down from them.
Yeah. The key, I don't agree. I like working with academies. I like what I've said it in the earlier question. There's nothing better than working with young players and promoting them and seeing them grow into the first team and stuff like that. That's the number one for me. But again, depending on what club you're at, some have a different view on it. Brentford have a different view on it, and it works for them. The key to it is having a plan. It doesn't matter what plan it is. They having a strategic plan and knowing that's what we're going to focus on. We've done the research. We know how this is going to work, and we're going to stick to it. And we're going to tweak it as we go along. That what needs to improve. But
would you agree then, Guy, that the Brentford one, rather than put the millions in to develop the kids for Chelsea, Spurs to take them, they let them develop them and then take the ones that they release that they think is good enough?
I can see why. I can see why they do it, and I can see other clubs maybe following suit. I can see the understanding of where clubs that are lower, like championship level or lower down, who can't, it's a lot of money to run those academies, and depending on what success rate they're having of players coming through and selling. But again, a lot of clubs don't have a plan to do that. Do you know what I mean? So they're not selling. They don't really know what they're doing. They don't know what they're making. They're plowing money into it. They look at it as an expense. I can see why these top academies who have the best facilities, the top coaching, all that side of it, and developed, and because they're the best talent around Europe, and Brexit's probably going to change that, but the best talent across the country and everything. I can see why you would think, as a business point of view, why not just let them develop those players, because we know they're not going to make it into the first team, too many of them, and then the next level down of that talent, which is still going to be super talented, super coached, super whatever, all these things, we can take them. Do you know what I mean? Let someone else do the donkey work and all that side of it, and then we'll take those players at those 18, 19-year-olds that aren't really good enough for their first team, aren't really good enough to go and get a move somewhere, but they're still good enough to have a career, well, we'll take those ones. I did it. Funny you said that, but I didn't really think of it until you just mentioned it. But I took a player from Man City at Sheffield Wednesday in that exact circumstances, but I didn't take him for those circumstances, thinking like that, like we just spoke about. I just had a player at Man City, Dele Balashiro, who, for me, is potential to be a top player, but he isn't at the level of Man City yet, because who is? And he isn't quite at the age or the level of experience to go and them to sell him.
Yes. So where is he now, Gary? Is he?
He's at Sheffield. He's at Sheffield Wednesday.
Oh, he's there now.
He's 18, 19, and he's a very, for that age group, very, very good player. Very physically developed, everything like that. He's had a good development there, so I can see why clubs would think like that. Or more clubs will think like that. Do you know what I mean, in the future? But
so, Gary, jokingly, between us all here, are you in for the Cardiff job then?
Do you know what?
What?
I'll be shocked by not only the home fans but the Swansea fans as well. So it's not worth my life.
And it's some rivalry, isn't it?
Yeah, I think. Look, I had 12 years at Swansea, and it's kind of in the blood, you know, after going through everything we went through there. And yeah, I don't think I could step.
So just a lot after my quick. So on that, do you think Neil was done harshly?
I think it's the world that we know as managers. This is the world we live in. Do you know what I mean? Right. It's not right at all. Do you know what I mean? As a manager, you need a year, 2 years. Do you know what I mean? To develop your strategy and your environment and your culture. Do you know what I mean? And get your squad where you need to sort of get it all edging towards that. You need a year, 2 years. But we know as well that it's not that. We're judged on, as I said, with Neil, I don't know. Look at Neil's results. That's what we're judged on. Do you know what I mean? The result is the only thing. And because, again, not having a plan or knowledge above where this is what I'm saying. If you had a plan, then the head of that club employs people that can follow that plan. Do you know what I mean? He employs a manager that he knows can follow that plan. And rather than just plucking a manager from here and there, they follow that plan, that start. And then they'll know, because they have that knowledge, and the people around above have that knowledge of what he's doing on a daily basis. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. So, Gary, in your next job then going forward, will you be looking at the clubs that you, where it's home or abroad, whatever, and see, obviously, like you've gone into Sheffield Wednesday, as you say, didn't have a plan. Will you be looking deeper when you go for your next roles?
Yeah, unfortunately, I always do, and it depends on what options you have as well. But there's not many that do have a plan. Right. Do you know what I mean? It's mind-boggling. There's not many that do have a plan. You're never going to walk into the perfect job unless you're a top manager at the, you know, you got everything to go with it. They're going into these top, everything's in place and stuff like that. There's not many that you're going to walk into another opportunity, but that doesn't deter me. That is the whole thing. The reason why I've taken the route that I have is I love the challenge. Do you know what I mean? I love to, I think I'm the one that I can turn that around. I can get it going somewhere. I can try and get a plan going, or at least implement some sort of plan going, whether that's met with resistance or not. Do you know what I mean? That's how my mindset is. And unfortunately, I've run into resistance, and obviously when you're not the boss, you're the one that's going to get it in the neck. Do you know what I mean? Not them. But so that's just the life it is. You accept that. Do you know what I mean? They have the right to make whatever decisions they want, right or wrongly in your head. But it's the challenge. I don't want a perfect scenario. I would like a plan for now. I'm lying a bit.
Definitely the last one. Your persona, from me, from the outside looking in, watching you from the sideline, from the different clubs you've been at, you always look quite cool. Is it the Jurgen Klopp thing, or are you cool underneath, or is it just how you hide it, show it?
Do you know what it is? I just try and stay balanced, really, in the sense of, I don't know, you pick your moments, don't get me wrong. I've had a few sit downs in front of the FA for a few situations that I've got involved in, but I just think, like, a lot of times when the players are looking across at you in critical moments, if they see you all over there's times where they need to see you animated and all that side of it, of course. Do you know what I mean? But there's a lot of times that you keep the balance, because they need the most important bit is that they're getting the information. Do you know what I mean? They're getting clear information and the right information. Sometimes when you're losing your mind and you shout something, you're shouting something that's an impulse, do you know what I mean? And that comes across, that might not be the right information. It might be great. It might be like, yeah, it sounds great and it looks great. And, but it might not be the right, all I care about in those moments in a game is winning the game. What can I do to help this group of lads out here win this game? That's all I think about. And it's like, regardless of the atmosphere, because you can, of course you can, the atmosphere and everything like that. Obviously there is no atmosphere at the moment, but all that side, my job, mindset in those 90 minutes is how do I help this group of players win this game? And that's all that matters. That's my job. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, if I get too wrapped up in the emotion side of it, then am I giving them the best opportunity? Am I giving them the best of me? You know, I don't feel I am, but of course there's plenty of moments where the emotion takes over and the animation takes over inside of it. But then you'll get the eccentrics, you know. Jurgen Klopp is an eccentric in that sense, you know. It's great TV, he speaks brilliantly, seems a great guy, all that side of it. And good luck to him. Do you know what I mean? So I'm probably somewhere in between. Try and keep calm, just because I want to give the right.
Do you feel for Frankie Lampard currently?
Yeah, same. You know, but again, it's the world we live in. He's spent that money. He's expected to deliver. He's going into an environment that he already knows with the owner that's there. The track record of it is, if you do not deliver, you do not be there. Do you know what I mean? And we live in that world. We live in a short-term world. There is no. Those top ones have to be winning trophies. It's as simple as that. That's the be all and end all. Whether we think that's right or wrong or whatever, he's a good manager or he's potentially going to be a great there or whatever. It doesn't matter. Do you know what I mean? In their eyes, it's you have to bring trophies. And that's what the pressure is at those top clubs. And then that pressure is still the same all the way down, but for different reasons. So we know we have to deliver every single time. You know what I mean? They expect you to win. I've had owners and stuff like that. They expect you to win every single game. I've had points deductions. I've had like embargoes. Do you know what I mean? And they still expect to win every single game and be promoted, regardless. Do you know what I mean? And in your mind, that's totally unrealistic. It's great to want that and have an ambition like that, but realistically, if you have a points deduction and you're in an embargo and you've been relegation fodder for 4 out of the last 5 years, are you really going to go and get promotion that year? But in their minds, it is. And if you don't deliver it, bang. But that's just you have to accept that. You have to try and ignore that. If you ever thought like that, you'd never take a job. You'd never take a job. If you think I need stability and I need to, you know, have a clear this and that and freedom to go and do this and that, you'll never take a job. You have to be able to fight for it.
Garry, thanks for your honest answers. And Chris, thanks for the opportunity.
Cheers, Nath.
Jordan Wilson has one. Do you want to ask, Jordan?
Yeah. Mine was Garry. I'll write down here. So when you were 20, you were saying 26, you started doing your badges. What was the reason you wanted to get into coaching and not another field in football? And at the time, was there any managers that sort of made you inspired you, sort of think, oh well, I want to be like that?
Yeah. I was 26. I had a serious knee injury. I got injured in a game, and I went down to the surgery the next day and sat on the bed. And he told me before I went in for surgery, he said, "Look, I've got to tell you, you might not, you know, this might end your career." And obviously, at that stage, at 26, all I ever knew was football. You don't think about the end, you know, like everyone else. Do you know what I mean? Young player, like whatever. I'd never thought. I just instantly shit myself. Just thought, if I wake up off this table in a few hours' time and this hasn't gone well, what am I going to do? It panicked me. Like it was, one of the worst nights I've ever had. And then I was lucky enough that I woke up and it had gone well, and it was a year's rehab and all that side of it. But that got me thinking, I don't ever want to be in that situation. It can happen like that. Do you know what I mean? We all think we're going to play from 15 to 35, 36, 37. We all think that's going to be the route, but majority is not. It's cut short. So that scared me enough into thinking, don't ever be in that position again. So that's when I went into understanding what I know best, which is football, you know, what I've done my whole life. So that's why I started my coaching badges. And then I was lucky where, I was a captain and that side of it at Swansea from those ages and onwards. And I kind of always been. And then I was lucky I had managers there who I had good relationships with that allowed me to have insight. Obviously, Roberto Martinez was someone who I was a teammate with at Swansea. Then when he came back as a manager, always had a great relationship with him as a teammate. So had a great relationship as a manager. But Brendan Rodgers was the biggest one for me. He was top. And he knew at the stage I was coming into my 30s, what I wanted to do afterwards, even though I was still playing and hungry to play. And he would allow me a lot of times to sit with him after trainings and delve a bit deeper into certain things. You know, I paid a lot more attention from 26 onwards to meetings and how managers would speak at half times, how they would speak to players, you know, individually and stuff like that, you know, like in groups, and what the trainings were and what, you know, I was lucky enough with like Brendan, for instance, to go and ask him, well, why was that session like that? Why did you stop it and speak to that player like that? Do you know what I mean? You know what I mean? And he would tell me. So I had a lot of insight from that side of it. And then, and yeah, you take those experiences that you've had all the way through, but the number one is to be yourself. But of course, those experiences mold you and how you think and what you need to do. So that's kind of how my path started going into thinking about coaching, yeah, from 26 onwards, really.
Yeah, no, brilliant. Cheers, Garry.
Cheers, John.
Adam Topping.
Good stuff, Chris. Thank you. Garry, great listening to some of your questions and answers there tonight. Just like Seamus, listening in and sort of jotting down a few. I had a wee search for you there. You actually stopped Bergkamp and Henry scoring that day against Southampton. So
I didn't want to mention it, but I got man of the match. That one.
I believe they actually took you off. Was it 15 minutes before the end? Because you're. But yeah, so just you touched on the, you know, obviously the analytical data. Obviously, you've got the soccer profile going. Obviously, it's become a lot more prominent in the game. How much decisions are made sort of in game using that data compared to like your normal coaching eye, or for example, like a gut instinct? And have you ever went with a gut instinct over analytical data? Because obviously you're probably working at clubs there where there's an analyst maybe there. He's maybe coming to you saying somebody hasn't done this or done that. You need to take him off. He's busted. Have you ever went against that or against the grain?
Yeah, gone both ways. That's a good question, that, because yeah, it's a big part of it. I have an analyst who's been with me since Swansea, so we've been together for 6 years. We've been there longer. I've known him. He was at Swansea for longer than that, but so we've had a relationship for good on 10 plus years. But in terms of working with each other for 6 years, so he knows exactly. And over that time, we've developed. He knows exactly what my game model is and what we expect in games, and obviously to analyse that and what I need and what we need and what we're looking for. So it's great because it's instant and it's not, doesn't need a lot of conversation now we're at that stage. But I've gone both ways with it. I've gone where, you know, at half times, for instance, as an example, where we have our game plan, and he'll be clipping the certain parts of the game plan that we want to see, good and bad, maybe to show players or whatever it is, or to make decisions as a staff or me as a manager. And times he's come in and showed that this part of the game plan isn't working, whatever it is, and I've gone with my gut. Do you know what I mean? And then there's been, you know, no, I understand that, but I'm going to go with my gut. I think it's going to work out better in the second half. Do you know what I mean? And gone with that. And there's other times it's flipped around the other side. My gut is to continue with that certain element that he's mentioned. And then he's maybe a tactical part of it is said, this could help us in terms of the game plan from an analytical point of view. And then I've gone with that. So it's kind of 50-50 really. You've got to trust your gut, but then sometimes, you know, I trust him implicitly. You know, he knows me. I know him really well. I know the information that he's given me is accurate to what we want to do. So because I have that relationship and it's built up strongly, probably 50-50. Yeah, 50-50. Sometimes one will overrule the other. It won't always be my gut overrules the analysis. Sometimes it's analysis overrule my gut. Do you know what I mean? But always with the intention to try and make the right decision. And then ultimately, of course, I have to make that decision. So sometimes he has to be really persuasive. Yeah. But he's learned to be more persuasive over recent years. But no, but I trust him. I trust his opinion. And yeah, of course, I have to make that final decision. But it's all done with, you know what I mean, proper reasoning why I would make that decision. So yeah, it's a good question because it's massive now. Analysis is massive. The good thing about this generation now is through the academies, we never did analysis through academies when I grew up, but now they're used to it. They want it. So there's a lot of analysis that goes on, and you have to cater for that. So yeah, it's a big part of it. So yeah, I've based my decisions on probably 50-50 of both in critical moments mostly.
Good stuff.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Right, Adam. Dean, is it Dean McElroy? Got a question sent through from Dean.
Yeah. Hi, Gary. How's things?
Hi, Dean.
Just a couple of questions, I suppose. Roughly on opposition, how many hours a week would you be spending focusing on that? Just as a Leeds fan, I know it's well publicised that our current manager puts a lot of time into it, but on general, how much would you focus on it per week?
Yeah, it varies. My main ethos is on us. I put most of my ethos, if we want to put it as a percentage, I'd probably put 75% focus, maybe even more sometimes, on ourselves. Because at the end of the day, I look at it more from the fact of, unless we get ourselves right, you're not going to beat anyone anyway. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So unless we're getting our own, way of working and what we want to do as a team and stuff like that, you're going to get beaten. So my biggest emphasis, is on ourselves, improving ourselves, knowing what we want to be and how we're going to do it, and training that and going through that, repetitions, all of those side of it. And then obviously you have to take on board the opposition, but really I do that in a way as in tweaking what we do, not going too far away from what we're going to do as ourselves, what we're wanting to do continuously, game after game, whatever, but try and tweak elements within that are going to try and nullify the opposition, but have our structure pretty much where we want it, so the most emphasis is on ourselves rather than the opposition. But of course you have to set plays and things like that, and certain formations that you're going to face and certain players that you're going to face in an opposition. You have to make them aware of that in a way of what we do, how we need to move this to nullify that. When they've got it, when this player has it like this, we still do this, but we might need to tweak one player or something within it. So that's really what I try and do everywhere I've been. And I think players, when they feel it's about them, and I worry a little bit sometimes is if you talk too much about the opposition, there's a little bit of fear and a little bit of, I just try and keep it consistent, of the majority is about us. Like before games, for instance, in the meeting, say the day of the game, we have the meeting, it will all be about us. Do you know what I mean? It will be clips of us doing our game plan or our game model, whatever it is. It'd be just constant. And it can be the same, not the same clips every week, but the same theme. Do you know what I mean? It'd be our defensive structure, us doing it well, doing it aggressive, doing it front foot. It'd be us, our offensive patterns of play or whatever we that are constant throughout every game, us doing it well. Do you know what I mean? And I'll tailor that to, if we're playing away, to clips of away games. If we're home, clips of a home games. If it's an opposition we've already played, I'll do it to us doing the same, what we want to do. Do you know what I mean? Clips of ourselves. So it's all us. But obviously, when you're on that training ground the days before, stuff, I'll put in little defensively. I'll put in little tweaks that we need to do against. I might show them a little bit of the opposition, what we need to be aware of, and set plays, what we need to be aware of course. But most of it's a high percentage of it is about us and what we need to do. Very
good. And then just the last bit, most skillful player you've managed?
Most skillful? Most skillful. Gylfi Sigurdsson was skillful at Swansea. Most skillful. There's a few of them. We had in those earlier days Nathan Dyer and Wayne Routledge at Swansea, Pablo Hernandez, Leeds. Extremely skillful players. Pablo probably edges it for me in terms of talent, ability, manipulation, skillful, incredible brain on him. It's great to see him doing it at Leeds still. He's fantastic, unbelievable player. I'll probably say Pablo. Pablo is probably the most skillful, intelligent, skillful type of player that I've managed, or one of, definitely.
Very good. Cheers. That's the answer I wanted to hear.
Sean has another one.
Back again, like the Renegade Master. A few of the boys there, the questions that I thought of, I've actually answered, so I've kind of plucked one out of a thinner. A lot of coaches say, managers always say it's a lonely game at the top, like you manage it, no one's your friend and whatever, but you obviously do have friends. So is there like other name managers that you be quite pally with, that you'd be sharing, obviously when there's normal times, round the golf or a day trip out with family or whatever, you know, is there a few managers that you do keep in touch with, or is it a lonely job? Like, is it like that bit?
It's lonely, mate. It is lonely. It is. There's no getting away from it. It's tough. You've got your family, and that's what keeps you. You know, the problem is like, anytime I've got 3 young kids. Do you know what I mean? I've got 2 twin boys who are 6, absolute cray twins. I've got a 9-year-old daughter who's like one of the cray twins. So any spare time I really get, I'm spending it with the family, doing something with the family. But I keep in touch, of course I do. I'm lucky enough to still have a really great relationship with Brendan Rodgers, keep in contact a lot with him, his assistant as well, Chris Davis and stuff like that. And then other various managers often have texts and chats with managers, some that you've not even spoke to before. Some will give you a text out, probably ask you about a player, you know, that they're thinking of, you may have managed, and they're thinking about, you know, getting in the window or whatever it is, and then you start off a conversation like that. So I know I've got a great relationship with a lot of people within football, and, you know, old teammates and stuff like that. And yeah, if I can get out and about, but yeah, 3 kids, any spare time. It's so time consuming. That's the thing with the job as a manager. It's so time consuming. It's like, there's so many different facets. You know, it's not just dealing with football anymore. It's dealing with, like I said, owners and people, and, you know, secretaries and community projects and things. Like, all these things are just time consuming, you know, and it's great. I'm not complaining about it, but, you know, like in terms of hours in the day.
Yeah.
And I find I go in cycles. I find like I can go months where I just don't feel like I've got enough hours in a day to do anything. And then I'll go through periods of where I feel like I've got time. You know, I can go and do some exercise. I can go and swim, run, go on a bike, go and play golf. I haven't played golf for about 6 years, to be honest with you. But yeah, it's trying to find that balance. I've got much better at that. I remember when I first started at Swansea, and I thought stupidly in my head, I thought the old cliche of, I've got to be the first one in at the club and I got to be the last one out. So I was going in at like 6 o'clock in the morning, and I would leave at like 8:30, 9 at night. And I was doing it every day, every single day. And I remember getting about 4 or 5 months into that, and I was thinking to myself, holy shit. I was thinking, how did like these people do? I'm going to burn myself out. I just thought, how did these do it? Like, I looked at Arsene Wenger's and Uri Hodgson's, all these older ones, Alex Ferguson's at the time. I thought, how did they do that? Do you know what I mean? For like 20, Neil Warnock, 40 years. I was doing it. But then I realised that all sounds great. Do you know what I mean? First one in, last one to out. Do you know what I mean? All that side of it. Make sure that you have your hands in everything. Do you know what I mean? I was doing that more because I wanted to learn. So I wanted to put the hours in and analysis in the medical side of it and all those different parts of the club, because I wanted to, you know, if I'm going to speak to the head of medical, if I'm going to speak to the head of analysis, I've got to know what I'm talking about. Do you know what I mean? I've got to know the terminology. I've got to know what I want. Do you know what I mean? So I put those hours in because of that, mostly. But I thought, wow, this is just incredible. But then since time's gone past, I've learned what people really want from you. They just want you to be efficient. They want to see that you have the knowledge, but they want to see efficiency. You don't need to be there 17 hours a day, every day to be brilliant. Do you know what I mean? It's like, same with players. Everyone hears the stories of David Beckham, Frank Lampard went and worked on their free kicks, you know, shooting for after the training session for hours. No doubt they did. Do you know what I mean? And fine. But like, and there's no problem with that. And I still have players now that do that. But what I try and help them with is, it's not the extra 2, 3, 4 hours that is going to make you the best. It's how efficient you do it. So rather than going out there today and practice afterwards 100 free kicks, why not do 20, but at the highest concentration level, at the highest level? Do you know what I mean? Every single one counts. Do you know what I mean? That's how you improve. That's how you get efficient. That's what people want to see in you. So it's not that I'll discourage them to go and do it for an hour afterwards, but it's trying to make them understand that isn't just, it sounds great. Do you know what I mean? Same for as a manager. It sounds great. I'm going to be there from the first thing to the last, But what people really want to see from me is how efficient you are, how good you are, how knowledgeable you are, and how quickly you can deliver it and sharp. And do you know what I mean? Rather than, oh, he was the first one in today and he left it. That's great. It sounds great. But really, the benefit comes from how efficient you are. That's what people really want to see from you. Staff as well.
Appreciate it, Garry. Thanks, man. Thanks, Chris and Ben. Cheers.
Good, mate.
Christopher Casey.
Hi, Garry. Thank you very much for tonight. It's been brilliant.
Cheers, mate.
Calvin Phillips Leeds. Do you think he could break into the top 4?
Say again?
Calvin Phillips, who plays for Leeds.
Yeah.
Do you think, how far can he go? And do you think he could break into the likes of Man United, Man City, Chelsea squad?
Why not?
Playing on a regular basis.
Why not? I don't think, I try and say to, when I was at Leeds with Calvin was a young player there and sort of had a taste of first team football, being sort of in and out of it. And then I was lucky in the sense I could see it was him and Ronaldo Vieira at the time. Great name, unbelievable name. And I just looked at those two and I thought they could both be the future of Leeds, you know, for many, many years. Obviously, Ronaldo's, Ronnie as we called him, Ronnie's moved now. He's obviously left. I'm not sure why he left and stuff like that, because I thought he would have been Bielsa's type of player, him and Calvin. But with Calvin, you could just see. That's why I stuck him in there. That's why I trusted the pair of them. And although at the end, where the last 8 games didn't go well for us, I still stuck with them because I just felt they're the future. They need to go through this experience. Maybe their lack of experience didn't help towards the end, but I didn't really care about that. I just wanted them to experience. But Calvin, I've never put a restriction on the player. Always try and speak to him about that. Don't put a restriction on yourself. You might have an ambition and want to, you know, Calvin's would have been to reach the Premier League at that point. But then when you get the Premier League, why put the restrictions on that? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? And he's obviously grown and his mindset is strong. And yeah, why not? Not saying he's going to, but can he do it? Yeah, for sure. You know, he's strong enough. He's physical enough. His passing range is good enough. His engine's good enough. His quality is good enough. Will he get that opportunity? I don't know. But the way that he's going, breaking into the England squad, and can he get himself in there? Can he cement himself in there even more? Can he be the top man at Leeds? He's got the exposure for it now. There's no reason why he can't do it. So he's got the capabilities. Whether he does it or not will be up to him. You know, that's what I feel.
Super, guy. Thank you.
Cheers, mate.
Jordan Wilson, you had another one, had you?
Yeah, just came into my head there. Garry, I'm sure everyone on this Zoom chat can say who they would like to sit down with and chat football with. So if there's anyone you could grab a beer with in football, I'm sure you've met a lot of top class managers, but is there anyone you haven't met you'd love to sit down, have a pint with, chat football, chat life with? Is
what, a manager?
Yeah, a manager or even a player.
Manager. Who would be an interesting manager to speak to? I'll tell you who's an interesting one, Neil Warnock.
I would say so.
Yeah.
He seems like
I'm lucky enough where I've had quite a few conversations with him. He's actually really, really good with young managers, young coaches. He's really supportive. Like, for instance, I didn't even know. I've only ever come up against him as a player at that point. But when I first got the manager's job at Swansea, he was the first manager to text me out of the blue. Never spoke to him before in my life. This is Neil Warnock here. Just want to wish you all the best, blah, blah, blah. Great to see you, blah, blah, blah. Then he was the first manager when I got sacked to text me. And I thought, wow, this guy doesn't even know me. And he's out of the blue just texting me. And then from that point, he's always kept in contact. Every time gone in somewhere, we've come across each other and blah, blah, blah. And he's really supportive with young managers. And his banter is unbelievable. Like, unbelievable. Just comes in, it's like a whirlwind. He's all over, you know what I mean? It's just great. Any of us here, whether you agree with his style or how he is, how he's perceived as in the media, he's a fascinating guy.
Yeah.
So you do it for 40. Yeah. You do it for 40, 50 years now. How many stories you've got is unbelievable, isn't it? He'd be an interesting one at a dinner party. He wouldn't let you down, put it that way. But then everyone wants a name, don't they? Who do you reckon? Top one. Simeone would be all right because you can get in a bar fight afterwards with him. He'd back you up, wouldn't he? Yeah, Guardiola would be a good one, wouldn't it? Klopp, they'd all be good, wouldn't they? It'd be interesting, wouldn't they, guys?
Yeah.
To sit. But I'll just sit at home with Neil Warnock, and you lot can sit with Klopp and Guardiola.
I'd probably, United fans will love this, but I'd probably go Fergie.
Yeah, Fergie would be another one. Yeah, 100%. You imagine the stories those guys have from what they've been through, like unbelievable.
Yeah, no, cheers, Gary. Appreciate that again. Thank you.
No problem, pal.
All right, Mickey, I think you've got the final one there from one of the coaches.
Yeah, well, if there's actually a couple here. Just I'll go with this one first, from Davy McQuigg, who is a Leeds United fan, for his sins. So Davy, sorry, I had to get that one in. After finishing 7th in the 2016-17 with Leeds United, what led you to leave the club at the end of the season, 2 days after the appointment of the current owner, Andre Radziani, and how different is Leeds United now compared to when you were there? So no disclosures.
Yeah, no, look, there's a lot. There's a lot being said in the media about this and that side of it, and I think the real answer to that is I think everyone thought I had left because I had Middlesbrough lined up. But I think when you look at the cold facts of it, who would leave Leeds United for Middlesbrough in their right mind? That's no disrespect to Middlesbrough, but Leeds United is a massive football club. But again, you just know as a manager and your jobs, you know, we've been there, we signed there for a year. I signed under a different owner who was crazy. We'd worked our nuts off and got the club into a really healthy position. When I went in there was so much disconnect between the fans and the club because of the owner, and that filtered onto the pitches, and there was no connection there. We put that all back together and started to win again and started to perform again. Ellen Road became a fortress, and that whole relationship was great. And my only thought at that moment, coming towards the end of that season, was to be there. But you know, new ownership came in halfway through. It comes to the end of the season, I hadn't heard anything. We were only on a 1-year contract, not just me, but my staff. We all have young families. We all don't, you know, that uncertainty that we were living under Chilino from day to day because he could sack you at any moment. It was difficult whilst trying to do the job. And, you know, but I think you understand as a manager, when new owners come in, sometimes they want their own people there. They want their own manager, their own person. And I just felt that that's what he wanted, and he was only wanting me to be there because the fans like me. So I didn't want to go turn around to my staff and say, look, you know, we're not really wanted, but we can stay if we want. You want to feel wanted. Do you know what I mean? You want to feel that you've done and put so much into is respected and wanted to move forward with, but just never had that feeling. So quite rightly so. And every owner has, I said, they have the right to make whatever decisions they want. In quite normal situations, a new owner comes in and they want their own people. You have to make a decision. And I made a decision to leave. I didn't want to. Like I said, we had great work done there, and Leeds is a huge club. I was enjoying it. Family were moving up. But this is the life of a manager. You have to get on and dust yourself down. But everything comes out afterwards in terms of the media side of it that just want to make stuff up and mislead it. And unfortunately, clubs want to protect themselves as well. You know, you're losing a manager that was liked. You're not going to go out there and say, we've made a mistake. You're going to try and, you know, do one or two things. You're going to try and either admit that, but they're not going to do that. You're fighting against a football club. So they're going to try and come out of it smelling the roses. That's just the life it is. Do you know what I mean? That's just the way it is. But I can honestly say, hand on my heart, I wanted to be there. New owner didn't want me to really be there, and I wasn't going to be a sitting duck for no one. So I made the decision to leave, and that's the truth of it all, to be honest with you.
Thanks, Garry. This is a contentious one, all right, and it's actually quite good. After the incident last night with Tyrone Mings and the offside rule,
yeah,
our players taught the rules of the game.
I'm not sure even the refs know all the rules, do they? Alone the players. Nah, I think as players, you don't go through every single rule. I try and read as many rules as I can, but some of them are just farcical. And problem ones like that are so rare, aren't they? Like last night, it's so rare for that to happen. But it's kind of like, it's an unwritten rule, isn't it? You know, remember when the keepers used to hide behind their goalkeeper, didn't they? but off the pitch, and then the keeper drop, thinking no one's behind him, and they drop the ball, and then the striker come back on and score a goal, and then they ruled that out and said that's not allowed anymore. It's the same principle as like what you saw last night. It's kind of like a sportsmanship, isn't it? You don't, if you're offside and the defender gets the ball, you don't go and take it off him. You know what I mean? It's kind of like that unwritten rule, but now obviously it is written, but I'm pretty sure most players wouldn't know that. Do you know what I mean? You just don't do that. Do you know what I mean? It's just not really, you kind of expect that to be blown up for, but it obviously is the rule, but it's just another farcical rule that needs to be changed. But the problem with it all, like VAR and stuff like this, is the system isn't wrong. The principle of it's good, but the problem is the people that are making the decisions and the people that are making decisions about these laws are just not the right people to make decisions about rules and laws. I don't know who's on those panels. We never hear of them. We don't know who they are. I think it needs to be people that have an understanding of it that makes the rules and make them simple and keep it as simple as possible. I think that will clear a lot of things up. Rules like last night, but in VAR and stuff like that. Because I speak to referees as well. Some of they're disillusioned with a lot of it. They're like, look, we have to follow this protocol. So we look stupid in the middle, taking 2 or 3 minutes to make a decision and going back and forth and back and forth. We look stupid. We don't want to be doing it, but we have to do it because that's where it's at right now. So there is, some of them are as disillusioned as some of us that are watching it on TV are, so it's not really the ref's fault. They're just trying to implement what they've been told to implement at this moment in time. And of course, some get it wrong a little bit with the way they deal with things, but the majority know that it needs to be changed, but their hands are tied. So hopefully if that gets cleared up, then we have a real quick and efficient way of refereeing, and rules will be just very simple.
Yeah, as a referee myself, I even looked at that last night and went,
yeah,
I wouldn't want to have been on the pitch, to make that decision, where the decision itself was absolutely 100% right.
Yeah.
The sportsmanship of it was wrong. Yes, Tyrone Mings took the ball down his chest, took it down his foot. Bad touch.
Yeah.
The player was, as somebody said today, I was actually watching one on Twitter today, that if somebody said, what if he had headed the ball back towards the goalkeeper?
Yeah. Yeah.
The player standing behind him.
Yeah.
I'd
quite like it to go back to let the referees use their common sense. And some have more common sense than others, but so be it. I think really the rulings should just be in the penalty boxes. That's it. Everything else outside the penalty boxes, leave it to the referee. Let's have that debate. Let's have that moan afterwards that he didn't give us that decision. Let's have that debate in the pubs and in the bars with your mates and all that side of it. Let's have that. And then just maybe in the penalty areas for penalty decisions. Do you know what I mean? And things like that. Maybe just keep it simple like that. But offsides, don't get me wrong, I've been on the receiving end. It's catch-22, isn't it? You're on the receiving end of a bad decision offside. Maybe, I don't know, it's a difficult one, isn't it? I think just penalty areas and then let human error take, it's part of the game. Let the human error be there. Do you know what I mean? Offsides and refereeing in the middle of the pitch. Just let it be. Let it be what it was. That was a lot of the talking points and stuff like that. They don't do it on purpose. Maybe just help them get better and keep it to like penalty situations within the area for VAR. But they've made their way. I'm not against what they're doing, but they just need to make it a lot better and a lot easier. And the people that make those decisions, maybe they need to have a better process of it. Put the world to rights here, haven't we?
You're right. Yep. Chris, do you want to say anything, or do you want me to finish up on the couple of things there?
I think that's all the questions in. I'll just like to thank Garry. Garry, thanks very much for coming on again. That was superb. Really, really, really good. So thank you from everyone at the Academy and everyone in the call.
Thanks very much.
Thanks.
Garry, thank you.
Cheers, coach. Cheers, lads.
Hopefully we'll do it again soon. I'll try and do it. I've got a couple of presentations that might help from a coaching point of view. It's just more things that are put in place that when you're going to owners or you're going in for a job interview and you're going to have to show people things that set out your kind of thing. Maybe I'll show that next time. We can do one of them, and that'd be quite interesting for some of the guys and the coaches and stuff like that. getting out your, I don't like to call it philosophy, I think it's a buzzword, but you're kind of like game model and stuff like that. Maybe I'll do a presentation like that. It'd be good for the guys and the coaches, maybe some that are thinking of going for jobs and stuff like that, or come to these type of jobs. It might be a little bit helpful. One or two things might be a bit helpful in there.
Gary, have you enjoyed the chat tonight, or enjoyed sharing your experiences, or is it good for your well-being? How did you see tonight?
So boring, wasn't it? No, it's great. I love it. I think like it's just good to share. I love answering questions and trying to, even if you take one thing from it. Do you know what I mean? You're better off taking. Hopefully, someone's taken one thing from it tonight, and you're better off helping one thing happen than before this not doing it at all. So I love these sort of things, interaction, and it's a bit different doing it on here and stuff like that, but it's great. It's a way for interacting, and it gets you away from homeschooling and away from the kids and the missus.
Could you understand?
What more can we want? What more can we want? We should all just have a beer in our hand, and then we just sit here for an hour, pretend that we've all chatted about football, and then we just go back downstairs.
Yeah.
No, it's a pleasure. Like I said, I'll speak to you, Chris, and the guys, and I'll get that presentation, because it might be benefit for the guys here, where even if it's one thing on that, like going in for interviews and things like that, kind of how try and set it out. So really you're selling yourself, aren't you, and what you do and stuff like that. It might be interesting for the guys to see that.
Yeah, that'd be really good.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it. And all the best. Stay safe, everyone. And hopefully I'll see you soon.
Thank you very much, mate.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone.